Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Well, we're out here once again working on our 68 Charger, and I know at the beginning of every episode I always say it's going to be a huge day out here. Well, guess what? Not every day is blast day, and that's exactly what today is. And frankly, I've been looking forward to this day for quite a few years, and it's finally here. We've had weather issues, we've had scheduling issues, just all sorts of issues, but we finally made it. And by the end of this episode, the car, every panel will all be blasted, prepped, and in epoxy, and all assembled. And for the first time in 50 years, we'll be able to say that this car is a clean sheet metal roller. So those of you that are new to the channel, this car sat out in the woods in Ohio for almost 50 years, and this thing never had a chance. And I've had to rebody almost the entire car, with the exception of the roof and the firewall, but pretty much everything else is new. It's all been replaced, and we're gonna take this car that was destined for the scrap pile and put it back on the road where it belongs. So fortunately for me, my blaster actually comes right here to the house, does it on the side of my house, and hopefully the cops don't get called by the end of this episode. Neighbors don't really like it that much, gotta be honest. It's pretty loud, but yeah, picked a Friday morning, and yeah, we're gonna get this thing blasted, get it taken care of, and man, what a huge step forward the next couple days are gonna be. Alrighty, you guys, so Bryce just took off, and man, did he knock it out of the park. The car looks really good, and it definitely leaves us with a really nice surface finish to work with and saves us so much stinking time. So from here, what we need to do, take a wire wheel, we're gonna clean up basically the entire car, inside, out, top, bottom, you name it, it's gonna get wire wheeled and cleaned up. And then also for the flat panels, we did leave them in the EDP coating. Now, we will get 80 grit DA sander, clean up the whole thing. The reason I do that, you always run the risk of warping panels when you abrasive blast like that. You know, Bryce has a ton of experience. He's done a lot of great work for me in the past, but you know, you never know. But it's easy enough to grab an 80 grit, throw it on there, and we'll make quick work of that. But all of the hard to reach areas, so all the channels, all the window channels, anywhere that's going to take a lot of time and that's hard to get to is what I had them focus on. Now, when you blast a car like this, especially ones that have original panels on them, you're going to find hidden damage. So unfortunately, our tail panel here suffered a hit at some point in its life, was caked full of body filler, and yeah, we're going to have to pop that back out there and make that flush. But you know, from here, there's just a lot of cleanup, a lot of booger welds. I don't know who'd have done those, but yeah, we just got a lot of cleanup to do, guys. But you know, none of it should really stop us from hopefully getting this car into epoxy within the next 24 hours or so. And yeah, from here, guys, it's a lot of sweat equity, a lot of time, and yeah, get this thing ready and get into epoxy. So from here, I'm going to run over to Harbor Freight real quick, go grab a bunch of materials, get this thing back into the shop. We got to blast it out with some air first. You're always going to have sand that gets stuck inside the car. So yeah, we'll clean all that up and start surface prepping it and getting it closer to epoxy. So let's get to work. All right, guys, well, it's bright and early on day 2. I think it's about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning or so. Worked till about 1:30 in the morning last night, so I'm absolutely beat. But the good thing is, the car looks great. Now, unfortunately, did not get to spray it last night. And you know, I had myself convinced there for a minute, oh, let's at least spray the outside of the car. I'm glad I didn't do that because we're gonna do the whole thing in one shot today. Now, we still got some cleanup to do on the inside of the car, of course. When I had him blast the car, I only had him hit kind of the major corrosion areas, but we're still gonna touch every square inch of this thing with either a wire wheel or a Scotch-Brite pad at the least. And yeah, get it all cleaned up and ready to go. You know, of course, today we're now predicting rain, and the countdown clock is on for when this thing is gonna start flash rusting. So we gotta get it sprayed. And you may be thinking to yourself, why would you spray the car when you know you got issues and things to clean up? You know, and you're right, we've got welds to clean up. We've got holes that surfaced yesterday down here. We've still got a lot of work to do on this thing, a lot of little metalwork items to do. But again, it's gonna start flash rusting whether we want to or not, or no matter how much time we spend out here, it's gonna happen. And so what I like to do, I like to get the whole thing sprayed in epoxy, and especially using the white epoxy, it actually amplifies everything so much more, and we'll be able to see all those little areas. And from there on, we can just work piece by piece, inch by inch, and eventually we're gonna touch every single square inch of this car and correcting all the issues and making them all right. Here's that damage on the tail panel I was talking about here. It's kind of caved in at the top, so we'll have to pop that back out. But yeah, just a lot of little stuff. You know, some things that may only take a tap or two with a hammer. You kind of see right there, it's like part of the panel, like something poked it hard from the inside, pushing it out. But either way, we'll fix it all. It's not a big deal. It's just time and money, right? But no, the car looks absolutely phenomenal, and it's really cool to see this thing in all metal. Now, when you get it blasted, the finish of the car is actually going to be, it's going to feel like it's about 40 grit, 60 grit sandpaper. And just taking that wire wheel and just a light touch of the surface here, I always say never touch a bare metal car with your hands, but we're going to be cleaning this thing here in a few minutes. But hitting it with the wheel, you can really feel it. It turns like glass. And you can see, you know, we've got a nice scratch in that. We've got some good tooth to provide for our epoxy, so should be good to go. As long as you can get it nice and clean, you won't have any adhesion issues with the epoxy sticking to the car. So with that, guys, again, gonna do some more stretches, gonna drink a cup of coffee or two and get to work, but by the end of today, this car is gonna be in color. Alrighty, so it's day 3. We're out here bright and early once again. Beautiful day today, forecasting no rain, which is great. So that means that we can actually get the car outside while we work inside. But real quick, car turned out so good. I can't wait to see this thing outside, to see the light shine off of it, but really, really happy overall with how everything's looking on it. But now we've got everything else. We've got a pair of doors here, we got a hood to do, we got a grille support to do, we got fenders to do. We have a lot to do. So let's get this car outside and start sanding. Alrighty, you guys, well, after a very long couple of weeks, I'm happy to say that the car is finally all in epoxy. Well, not all in epoxy, but almost all in epoxy. Now, as you guys have seen over the last half hour or so, we've got basically all of the exterior body panels all into epoxy. Everything turned out so damn good, and it gives me kind of a false impression that this car is a whole lot more far along than what it actually is. You know, it's great seeing it in one color. The body lines sure look fantastic on the car, but man, have we got a lot of cleanup to do. So, you know, a lot of plug welds that we got to grind down, a lot of panels that we need to straighten out, close up these gaps here, make everything nice and seamless. You know, of course, panel fitting. Okay, the hood's just sitting on top for now, but you know, getting all of our door gaps right, getting all of our welds ground down, making sure that all of our lead seams are all lined out right. We got to fill this damn turn signal. There's a lot of work to do. I mean, I'm going to go over, you know, every single one of these plug welds here in the trunk, or any of the welds from sectioning and narrowing this trunk pan. All that stuff is going to have to get cleaned up, body worked, and everything else, because I really, truly want this to be completely seamless, and I want it to look very, very professional and high quality. So, yeah, all these welds here, and I mean, of course, the plan was to grind all this stuff down, but it's really nice getting it all blasted, getting it into epoxy, and really all those issues are magnified a whole lot more now that it's in color. But you can see there's a whole lot more dents in the roof than what I was thinking. See that monster one right there? Definitely did not realize that I had that to deal with. Now, I mentioned almost all the panels are into epoxy. You can see here a deck lid, which is clearly not. Now, what I ended up doing, I did not remember to blast this, quite honestly. It was sitting in the back of the shop. My buddy Bryce ended up taking off for the day, and I realized that this had not been blasted. And frankly, I'm really glad that we didn't waste the money on doing that. So I knew there was some issues down here in this seam. Okay, what ends up happening over time, you get some moisture in here. It ends up kind of swelling this seam up a bit. It ends up rusting kind of the whole lip out of this thing, and you'll see a lot of these deck lids where that back lip is completely eaten away. And I suspect that at one time that definitely happened here, and somebody actually went through and unfolded this lip all the way down the whole thing. They slid a piece of aluminum right there behind, folded it back over, and then did the old cave and pave all the way down this deck lid. And you can see here, I mean, they just used that piece of aluminum in there as a backer and completely wedged a bunch of body filler in there. And yeah, it's ugly. Way too ugly to put onto this car. So I had to call in a big favor from a really good friend of mine. So I reached out to my friend Chad Bangeter over at CB Rods in Sunset, Utah, and asked him, hey man, I know he's got Daytonas. He does some incredible work over there. And I said, is there any chance you have a deck lid for a 6870 Charger? And not only did he have a deck lid, but he had one that he'd already done a whole bunch of metal work on, and this thing has already been blasted, it's been repaired, it's been epoxied, and it's also been seam sealed already. So can't argue with that. Very happy to have this, and you guys can see here how flat this lip is here. That's exactly what it's supposed to look like. So we're still going to sand this down, we're going to clean it up a little bit more, but overall this thing's beautiful, it's perfect, and it sure beats spending $600, $700, $800 to have a aftermarket deck lid sent here to the house. But the top side's already been completely body worked. You guys can see it's actually in a guide coat right now. So really, we'll throw a block on this when we get to the back of the car. We'll make sure that all of our gaps all the way around here are nice fitting to our quarter panels, because we may have some fitment issues there. We may have to cut those and weld those back up and shrink the size of the deck lid a little bit, or extend it possibly depending on the fitment. But yeah, awesome piece, super solid. Couldn't be happier, so big thank you to Chad. So in terms of what comes next on the car, you know, to temper all of your expectations just a little bit, for the next few months, this car is going to spend quite a bit of time in body work, okay? So even though that the only original panel on the exterior of the car is the roof, it still needs quite a bit of work. We've got to dial in all of our gaps. We've got to get all of our panel matching done. We've got to really fine-tune, tweak, clean up a lot of things. But, you know, I'm not a professional body guy by any means, but a little bit of OCD, a little bit meticulous, and quite honestly, the more time you spend in the bodywork phase, your paint work is going to look that much better. So can't wait to get it there. And oh, I did promise you guys that I would tell you the paint color. So a little bit on this, okay? I've changed my mind on this thing 20 times. I don't want it to look like every other Charger out there, so a lot of the factory colors are out, but man, I've really given a lot of time and consideration to it. Of course, we picked green. This actually had me thinking crazy for a minute, thinking white, which I think actually would look pretty awesome on the car. I thought black, blue, red, every color, purple, all of it, right? But I think I'm settled. I think I've chosen the color, and it is going to be a very high metallic gunmetal gray. So it's going to be like a dark gray, almost black, with red tail stripes on it, possibly a red interior. Tell me what you guys think. We can also go black. But, I mean, regardless, we have to buy all the shit new anyway. So whatever color we get, it's going to look nice. It's all going to be new. And, man, I cannot wait to get this car wrapped up. So appreciate all you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. And, yeah, we're going to get right back to work on this thing. We're going to start dialing in everything and, man, get it that much closer to be painted. So take care, guys. I'll see you all again real soon.